We're going to continue this theme again for the next talk. And we're actually going to cover also how do you do these confidential transactions that are also compliant. And for this talk, I'd like to bring on Howard, who is the CEO of Provable, the team behind Alio. So please give Howard a big round of applause.
Hi. Thank you for attending and thank you for your time today. I want to talk about this title, Beyond the Blacklist, the Compliant Way to Do Private Transactions. My name is Howard. I'm one of the founders of Alio and currently run the Alio Labs company, which is called Provable. To really set the stage and to help give you guys context in terms of what it is that I want to talk about, you've all heard this afternoon so many topics about ZK and privacy and why this is important. I really want to take a step back and really try to set the stage to help you guys see, from past technologies, why this is so important. Whenever a new technology comes, there are good actors and there are bad actors. And with it, there are different ways that a technology evolves. And if we look back to 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when the internet was starting to come about, there was a very key pivotal moment that really started to unlock what the internet became for us today. And that was HTTPS and that was encryption. This technology enabled trust and it unlocked e-commerce for all of us today. And we take it for granted now in all of our systems. If you look forward now to where Web3 and where crypto is at, we're seeing a very similar type of paradigm arise. And what I mean by that is, if you look at the payment space today in crypto, we are such a small dot when it comes to encrypted payments. This is such an early stage phase that we're in right now. And it's because the technology is incredibly new. And the technology that I'm really calling out here is ZK. With this, right now we have something like $27 trillion in payments happening in crypto just last year, but only 0.01% of it was actually end-to-end encrypted. And that's saying something. I see that there's two primary problems with the current design and the current way that we've gone about this. And there's at least one solution that I see in terms of how we can solve for that. And the approach that we're taking really is to try to solve for these types of problems. The first is to say that fully transparent blockchains overexpose data and it puts users at risk. So take, for example, a user journey of money in crypto today. If you want to go to your local coffee shop and you want to buy coffee using USDC, well, you probably don't want the barista to be able to know your wallet address, because suddenly it reveals to them how much money you have, how much money you make, how much money you spend, how frequently you spend, and they can track this type of information for the rest of time. And that's not a great user experience for users who actually want to use crypto in day-to-day real-world payments. The second problem is you can't just sprinkle encryption on blockchains and call it a solved problem. And the reason for that is it's difficult to create the flexibility and the fluidity of what you need to be compliant in a fully encrypted blockchain. And we've actually seen this with existing blockchains try to do that and offer encryption for crypto. The approach that we're taking is with a new blockchain that's called Alio. Alio is an L1. It's an L1 that offers private smart contracts. And what makes it different is that it is at the intersection of several unique properties. The first is that it is permissionless. The second is that it is programmable. And the third is that it is privacy preserving. The goal is to make it so that you can build your decentralized applications as you could on a blockchain like Ethereum or like Solana. However, you can also have private shared state on it. And this is a very important piece, and I'm going to talk about why in just a moment. But right now, this is a very unique technology. It's one of the first that's out there and available. And for us, we see this as a landscape that we think is going to completely change how payments work. Just as I mentioned with the diagram of the stablecoins, this is another diagram to try to just really give you an idea of where blockchains are today, the folks who have tried privacy preserving blockchains, and where we think this is going to go next, which is having programmable privacy. So there's really two areas that I think we really need to touch on. The first, as many have already spoken about, is privacy. And I think that the second area, which is often often not looked at close enough is really compliance. Today there are many different types of schemes that are being proposed for how you do blockchain addresses, blockchain wallets, and blockchain transactions. You have this scheme. In our case, we use something called the private key to the view key to the address model. And the view key is really the heart of what makes this different. In a view key, you get some strong compliance policies. For one, you allow for third parties to be able to see specific transaction history. You also allow for other people with this view key to be able to see all transaction data. But it also provides you some stronger guarantees. For instance, I can use a view key to verify that a user has no transactions with OFAC sanctioned accounts, for instance, that their interactions in the past have been correct or have been clean, they've been done properly. And even more so, this is something that can even be threshold shared so that you can have policies beyond just what the view key itself entails, and allows for requirements to be hit so that a threshold number of parties need to be complicit in order to reveal some information from your account. Now, this approach of view keys is being actively explored by a lot of teams, but the purpose of this talk today is to really talk about how we think about compliance when it comes to private transactions. And there's a few key areas that I'd love to touch on beyond just view keys. This is really starting to get into this idea of going for compliant by design tooling. And the first is really to think about it from the true general smart contract perspective. Right now, beyond just view keys, what we need is an ecosystem of teams that are building compliance and rule engines. So to give one example, on this slide we mentioned Predicate. Predicate itself is developing a policy engine that provides smart contracts to define rules for on-chain transactions. And this type of approach of having a compliance engine, a policy engine at its heart, is something that will allow for third parties, including regulators and policymakers, to actually be able to look and inspect at transactions at the level of detail or granularity that they need in order to determine whether the transaction is malicious or honest behavior. And I think that this is something that you're starting to see also with a lot of the analytics firms out there. As you probably just have heard from some past talks, there are many teams that are exploring privacy at various degrees of integrations, from very specific purpose applications like private staking or private swaps, all the way to the general purpose private smart contracts. And at every one of these types of implementations and use cases, you're going to need to have some level of compliance that is going to satisfy not just regulators, but financial institutions and end users at the end of the day. And so we think that having a general purpose programming language that can define rules and provide a compliance engine is going to be a very important part of what this industry becomes. The second is really to think through verifiable credentials. So we have an effort called ZPass. It's an idea for providing identity for users by which you do not have to disclose all of the information about yourself. So to give you one concrete example of this in action today, people are using this technology in order to provide attestations that, for example, I'm over the age of 18 without revealing to other people my birth date specifically. It can also provide specifically, for example, claims of my citizenship and my nationality, that I am not coming from a sanctioned country, for instance. And this is another type of thing that we believe is going to be very important to have live on chain. So, for example, when you think about real world assets as they start to become tokenized into crypto, most of the times those types of assets are things that may need to start off in closed loops. And more so, for you to join a closed loop, you may need to provide attestations that you are an accredited investor, that you are above a certain age, that you may even have a certain type of background, and that allows you to qualify to participate. This is something that we've seen already actually as something as fairly standard when you open a brokerage account to trade securities today already. And when it comes to coming into crypto, we think it's going to be something that's going to be very, very similar. A third area which I think is going to be quite important is really looking through Timelocks and Escrows. When we have this bridge right now that's on Aleo, which allows you to move assets like ETH and USDC from Ethereum over to Aleo and back. The goal of bridges like this is really to enable users to be able to have not just public versions of these tokens, but also private versions of these tokens. I think that long term, a huge part of crypto is going to end up being private, and it's because users want to make sure that they retain ownership over their assets, that they have the full control of visibility and the full control of ownership over their assets. And time locks and escrows are an important part of ensuring that we're doing sufficient due diligence when you're trying to move assets across L1s and across L2s. So having this type of component gives time for those who are setting those rule engines or policies to be able to do analytics correctly and actually verify that these transactions are coming from honest actors with honest intentions. I think the last area to really touch upon here is about engaging with policymakers. So, I think for most of the people that are in this room, what I'm talking about here may not be rocket science, but I think outside of this room, this is very early ideas. We're at the ground floor of new types of capabilities that have been only possible in computers in the last 3 to 4 years and are only now starting to make their way into the market in the last 12 months. And because of that, it's on us as an industry to also try to define what we believe are best practices and hold ourselves accountable to that. So one example is with this community proposal called ARC 100 that was proposed by the executive chairman for the foundation here at Aleo. And the goal here was to really to propose compliance best practices for bridges and for validators that are being adopted by the community. And this includes some of the techniques that I just described, along with some others. And this is an ongoing conversation, not only in our ecosystem, but also across many other ecosystems. In addition, there are many advocacy groups. Many of you may know of Blockchain Association and Coin Center. I believe that these are teams that are going to continue to be an important voice and champion for the industry as we start to develop what we believe to be best practices, in this case for a chain like Aleo, and to really set a standard for other ecosystems that are also pursuing private smart contracts or private applications to be able to be compliant and operate in a way that allows for regulators and for third parties to inspect information at the time that they need to be checked. And it's not just us who are saying this, actually. There are many folks in industry that we work with and that are already here, even in this room, that are saying that this is an important part. Just to give you two examples, Miles Jennings, who's general counsel over A16Z Crypto, has pointed out that the Aleo network, being one of the first to market here with private smart contracts, is pioneering technology that enables developers to build applications that safeguard user privacy and, more importantly, comply with local laws and regulations. And Michael Mosier, who's one of the former FinCEN folks, has made the point that ANF is leading the way to empower developers to doubly protect users with a high-performance combination of privacy as security and configurable compliance, adaptable to jurisdictional expectations. And I think that is probably the more important part to call out, is that different regulators and different jurisdictions are going to have different requirements. And this is where we think the idea of using private smart contracts is going to be a very pivotal part of getting this technology out there. There's no one size fits all for everybody. And even the techniques that I've just defined here, I believe are still very much in their infancy. And we're going to be testing different limits for them. For instance, with Timelocks, some have proposed setting it to be what is the absolute minimum necessary, which is, for example, on Ethereum today to be 15 minutes in order to reach a checkpoint and have strong confirmation that your transaction has been confirmed. There are others who are saying that you need up to 24 hours, for instance, in order to provide for analytics firms the ability to inspect this transaction and give them adequate time to give a response that the transactions that are being sent over a bridge, for example, are actually honest and well-intentioned. Now, for those who are interested in exploring a technology like this, I certainly encourage you to check out Aleo. Aleo is the first privacy-preserving blockchain that Coinbase has launched as a day one launch partner since 2018. They've been offering validator, staking, custody, and listing support. And for those who are interested in building on Aleo, there's a few areas that we think are going to be incredibly interesting to tell a story about, specifically around payments and commerce. I'd like to walk you through just some of the ideas that we have and certainly some of the teams that are building on here now. There's 4 areas that I think that are going to be quite interesting when it comes to privacy on blockchains. It's really going to be payments, identity, gaming, and DeFi. When it comes to payments, having assets like stablecoins be private is going to be an important part of the user journey. Why? Well, let's take the user journey of buying an anniversary gift for your spouse. Being married, you probably know your spouse's wallet address. And so if you want to buy them an anniversary gift, you probably don't want to reveal to them all the data associated with it, because being your spouse, you probably know, their wallet address, and you can then look up, when did you remember that our anniversary is coming up? 2, you can just see where you bought this gift from. And 3, most importantly, you can know how much you spent on your anniversary gift. I think that this is a fundamental break in the UI UX journey for money. And I think that this is where private stablecoins can actually help to solve that problem. It's effectively giving you what is bank account level privacy that you're used to in Web 2 already, now in Web 3. And so I do think that this use for payments is going to be quite big. Secondly is with regards to identity. For those of you who are based in the US, you may have seen there's been ongoing conversations in several states about adding age verification and about adding identity verification to websites when you go on the web. I think that this is something that, there's first iteration pilots. ZPass is certainly one of them. However, I think as time goes on, you're going to start to see governments themselves explore using crypto-friendly primitives and ZK-friendly primitives to issue national ID cards and to issue passports with. And I think that this is an area that is ripe for opportunities. To be able to prove that I am, for example, a part of a set of individuals, whether they be accredited investors, or to be that I'm a US citizen, or to be that I'm a part of the set of folks who's over 18. For those who are technical in this room, you can think about it as Merkle set inclusion and also proofs that of Merkle set non-inclusions. And having a blockchain where you have smart contracts that are crypto friendly and ZK friendly will allow you to build those types of primitives and actually deploy it at scale. The third area is with regards to gaming. For those who have tried building games in crypto, especially on a blockchain like Ethereum or Solana, you probably quickly realize that gaming is quite limited. And what I mean by that is on these types of public blockchains, you can deploy games like chess, where the board is fully visible for all players and all spectators to see. And those types of games work on Ethereum because there is no hidden state. There's no hidden game state. But if you want to deploy a game like Battleship, it doesn't work so easily on a blockchain like Ethereum. For the cryptographers in the room, you could argue that you could try a commit and reveal scheme to try to make it work. But I think for most who are product folks in the room, they may be quick to point out that, well, that will require several block times and block intervals. It slows down gameplay, and it makes it very cumbersome on the user to have to constantly approve and sign each individual step. What makes a private smart contract system so interesting and powerful for gaming is you now open the world to information-asymmetric games. So a game like Battleship can easily be played because you can hide the opponent's board on the smart contract on chain itself. But even more so for games like poker, where you have game state that is hidden between multiple players, this is also an opportunity because now I can deal cards to you that are only visible to you and not to any other players or to the house. In addition, by having a chain like this where you have ZK at its core, you can also have strong verifiable integrity. And what I mean by that is, for example, if I want to spin a roulette wheel or if I want to roll the dice, I can prove to you in ZK that I did a fair shuffle or that I did a fair roll. And that is an opportunity to provide stronger integrity for users who are gaming on the web. And lastly, of course, is DeFi. There are a few protocols that are already deployed on Aleo today. And one of the key features that they leverage is this ability to provide confidentiality when you trade. Why is this important? Well, as you guys can probably tell, crypto assets like Bitcoin, like Ethereum, Solana, they're starting to make their way into mainstream financial institutions. One of the main challenges, though, is that everyone can just see what everyone is holding. And that is a huge problem, not just because you start to reveal what you're holding, but also because every time you rebalance your portfolio or every time that you make a trade, other people and everyone in DeFi can just simply copy your actions. By having DeFi on a system like Aleo and by having bridges from Aleo to other L1s and L2s, you can move your assets here, store them in a confidential wallet, and you can trade confidentially on a platform like this, providing you not just banking level secrecy, but also banking level privacy and compliance. And so this is an opportunity to really change how DeFi works and also open the doors to new types of applications like dark pools. With that, I'm out of time. I want to thank you for your time. And if you're interested to learn more, please check out Aleo. And also please follow me on Twitter at my handle is 1HowardWu. Thank you very much.